Commander Sarah Chen pressed her back against the cold bulkhead of the Hope's Dawn, her breath steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. The medical research vessel's emergency lights cast crimson shadows across her face as she listened to the methodical thump of alien footsteps echoing through the corridors. 20 years of space service, and she'd never imagined her final stand would be aboard a civilian vessel. The Krithak had appeared from nowhere, their stealth ships materializing like obsidian shards against the stars. Most of the crew had made it to the escape pods, but Sarah knew someone had to stay behind. The research in the ship's secure labs was too valuable to fall into the wrong hands, especially these wrong hands. Security breach on Deck C, the ship's damaged AI announced, its once smooth voice now fragmented and glitching. Multiple Krithak biosignatures detected. Warning: their environmental suits suggest Class 4 bioweapon capabilities. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Of course they'd come prepared for a medical research vessel. The Krithak were nothing if not thorough, a species that had built an empire on biological warfare and genetic manipulation. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed human medical technology would be compatible with their own. She pulled up the ship's schematics on her neural interface, the holographic display flickering in her peripheral vision. The Krithak were methodically sweeping each deck, their movement patterns suggesting they were searching for something specific. They weren't here for random salvage. RIA, she whispered to the ship's AI. Initiate Protocol Nightingale. Authorization: Chen, Alpha 770. Warning: RIA responded. Protocol Nightingale will seal all laboratory containment units and initiate emergency sterilization procedures. This will render all research samples temporarily inaccessible. Exactly, Sarah muttered, retrieving a small medical kit from her utility belt. And our friends out there don't need to know about the temporarily part. The sound of breaking glass echoed from somewhere below, followed by angry chittering in the Krithak language. Sarah had studied enough xenobiology to know what those sounds meant. Frustration, aggression, and mounting anger. Good. Angry opponents made mistakes. She began moving through the ship's service corridors, careful to avoid the main passages where Krithak search parties prowled. The neural interface showed their heat signatures as angry red blobs, moving with the precision of experienced hunters. But Sarah had something they didn't: intimate knowledge of human medical protocols and the ship's systems. Commander, Aria's voice crackled. The Krithak are attempting to access the main database. Their encryption algorithms are unusual. They appear to be using biological computers. Sarah reached the secondary medical bay, her fingers flying across the control panel. Can you hold them off? Temporarily. But they're adapting quickly. Commander, I'm detecting something strange in their search patterns. They're not just looking for our research data. Sarah paused, her hands hovering over the controls. What do you mean? They're specifically targeting areas containing human biological samples. Blood work, tissue cultures, genetic mapping data. Their interest appears to be in human biology itself. The realization hit Sarah like a pulse from an ion cannon. The Krithak weren't here to steal human medical research. They were here because of human medical research. Something about human biology had caught their attention, and knowing the Krithak's reputation, that couldn't be good. She pulled up the latest research logs, scanning quickly through the data. The Hope's Dawn had been conducting groundbreaking studies on human adaptive immunity, specifically how human immune systems could be taught to recognize and fight new pathogens with unprecedented speed. It was work that could save billions of lives across the galaxy, or, in the wrong hands, help create bioweapons of unimaginable power. A crash from the corridor outside snapped her attention back to the present. The Krithak were getting closer, their chittering now interspersed with the hiss of their environmental suits' air recyclers. Sarah quickly initiated the bay's emergency protocols, her mind racing through possibilities. RIA, how many Krithak are currently aboard? 27 confirmed biosignatures. Their leader appears to be in the main laboratory complex on Deck A. Sarah nodded, pulling up the ship's environmental controls. And their environmental suits, you said they're rated for Class 4 bioweapons. Affirmative. The suits appear to be fully sealed against biological and chemical agents. A plan began forming in Sarah's mind. The kind of crazy, desperate plan that had earned humans their reputation across the galaxy. The Krithak had come prepared for a fight against human bioweapons, but they hadn't prepared for human ingenuity. ARIA, begin evacuating atmosphere from all decks except the medical bays, Sarah ordered, pulling a sealed container from one of the storage units. And give me everything you have on Krithak biology. It's time we taught our visitors a lesson about underestimating human medical science. The lights flickered as ARIA began implementing her commands. In the distance, warning klaxons began to sound. Sarah checked her own oxygen supply and smiled. The Krithak thought they were hunting prey, but they were about to learn why humans had survived countless plagues, adapting and evolving where other species had fallen. They had picked the wrong ship to raid, and definitely the wrong human to mess with. The atmosphere vented from the Hope's Dawn's corridors with a howling whisper, but Sarah knew the Krithak wouldn't be inconvenienced for long. Their environmental suits were designed for far worse than vacuum. Still, the chaos would buy her precious minutes to implement her plan. 3 Krithak search teams have altered course, Araya reported. They appear to be converging on the secondary medical bay. Sarah's fingers danced across the neural interface, bringing up the ship's medical database. Show me their vital signs. The data streamed across her vision. Elevated heart rates, increased body temperature, heightened neural activity. The Krithak were excited, thinking they had cornered their prey. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she studied their biological readings. For a species that specialized in bioweapons, they were remarkably careless about broadcasting their own vulnerabilities. Fascinating, she muttered, noting the peculiar patterns in their life signs. Araya cross-referenced their current biological state with everything we have on Krithak physiology. Processing. The AI responded. Commander, I've detected an anomaly. Their neural patterns suggest they're operating in a linked state, similar to a hive mind, but artificially induced. Likely through their environmental suits systems. Sarah's eyes widened. That's how they're coordinating so effectively. The suits aren't just for protection. They're for tactical networking. She pulled a sealed vial from her medical kit, holding it up to the light. And networks can be hacked. A thunderous crash echoed through the bulkhead. The Krithak were using plasma cutters to breach the sealed doors. Sarah had maybe 2 minutes before they broke through. She worked quickly, combining compounds from the medical base supplies. Her hands moved with practiced precision, years of emergency medical training guiding every motion. The Krithak weren't the only ones who understood biological warfare. RIA, what's the status of the main laboratory? Their leader and 5 others are still attempting to access the primary research data. Commander, they've begun introducing unknown biological agents into the lab's air filtration system. Sarah's jaw tightened. They're testing for human biological samples, trying to see how our immune systems react. She sealed the mixture she created into an aerosol container. Let's give them something more interesting to study. The door's integrity failed with a screech of tortured metal. Sarah ducked behind a medical console as the first Krithak burst through. Their environmental suits were sleek, almost predatory in design, with sensors bristling across their surface. The aliens moved with fluid grace, their weapons trained on every corner of the medical bay. Sarah watched through the console's monitors as they spread out, their movements perfectly synchronized through their neural link. The lead Krithak chittered something, and their helmet sensors began actively scanning the room's medical equipment. They're attempting to download the bay's medical records, Araya warned. Perfect, Sarah whispered. Execute program Hippocrates. The medical bay systems suddenly blazed to life, every screen and holographic display activating simultaneously. The Krithak jumped, their weapons swinging wildly as medical data flooded their visual feeds. But Sarah wasn't trying to overwhelm their sensors. She was giving their neural network exactly what it wanted. Terabytes of human medical data poured through their suit's receivers: immunity studies, vaccine trials, virus mutations, bacterial adaptations, centuries of human medical history, of plagues survived and diseases conquered. The Krithak's neural network greedily absorbed it all, trying to process the flood of information. Biological anomaly detected in Krithak neural patterns, HFY reported. Their network is attempting to adapt to the data influx. Sarah grabbed the aerosol container. And that's their second mistake. They assumed we'd fight like them. She pressed a button on her neural interface, and the medical bay's ventilation system reversed. They forgot that human medicine isn't just about making weapons. The aerosol mixture dispersed through the room, a carefully calculated combination of human medical compounds, harmless individually, but when introduced to the Krithak's now adapting neural network, the effect was immediate. The aliens staggered, their perfect coordination dissolving into chaos. Their chittering turned to shrieks as their neural link transformed from tactical advantage to vulnerability. Sarah had turned their own adaptive technology against them, using humanity's vast medical history as a Trojan horse. Krithak vital signs are destabilizing across all decks, Araya announced. Their neural network is cascading. Sarah emerged from cover, watching as the Krithak search team collapsed, their suit's systems overwhelmed by the combination of human medical data and her specially designed compound. They weren't dead. She was a doctor, after all. But they wouldn't be hunting anyone for a while. Araya, locate the Krithak leader. It's time we had a chat about the proper way to request access to human medical research. She retrieved her medical kit and headed for the exit, stepping carefully around the incapacitated aliens. The real challenge still waited in the main laboratory, but Sarah had made her point. The Krithak had come hunting for human biological secrets, expecting to find weapons. Instead, they were learning why humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons at all. It was in its ability to heal, adapt, and turn even medicine itself into a defense against those who would do harm. The main laboratory of the Hope's Dawn was a testament to human ingenuity. 3 stories of medical research equipment stretched upward through the heart of the ship, each level dedicated to understanding and improving the mysteries of human biology. Now those same mysteries have become Sarah's greatest weapon. Their leader has sealed the main lab's environmental controls, Araya reported as Sarah approached. They're attempting to synthesize something using our equipment. Warning: detecting unauthorized access to the human genome database. Sarah paused at a research terminal, quickly scanning the Krithak's recent queries. Her eyes widened as the pattern emerged. They're not trying to steal our research, she breathed. They're trying to understand why it didn't work on us. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. The Krithak's obsession with human biological samples, their desperate attack on a medical research vessel. It wasn't just about weapons. They were searching for answers. ARIA, Access Historical File 2157, the Mars colony outbreak. Data flowed across her neural interface. 30 years ago, a Krithak bioweapon had been secretly tested on the Mars colony. The Krithak had expected total devastation. Instead, human immune systems had adapted, fought back, and ultimately rendered the weapon useless. It had been classified to prevent panic. But now, they never understood how we survived, Sarah muttered. And now they're terrified it could happen again. A massive crash echoed from inside the main lab, followed by the distinctive whine of medical centrifuges being pushed beyond their limits. The Krithak weren't just studying human immunity. They were trying to break it down, find its weaknesses. Sarah accessed the lab's security feeds. The Krithak leader stood at the central research station, their environmental suit more elaborate than the others, covered in pulsing biological computers. Around them, 5 other Krithak worked frantically with human medical equipment, their movements desperate and uncoordinated now. that their neural network was compromised. RIA. What are they synthesizing? Analysis suggests they're attempting to combine their bioweapon research with human adaptive immunity patterns. Commander, they're trying to create a hybrid pathogen that could bypass human immune responses. Sarah's jaw tightened. Not on my watch. She pulled up the lab's systems, her mind racing through possibilities. The Krithak had chosen this lab specifically, knowing it contained everything they needed. But they'd overlooked something crucial about human medical research. RIA. Initiate Emergency Protocol Darwin. Warning. The AI responded. Protocol Darwin will activate all automated research systems simultaneously. The power drain could overload our remaining reserves. That's exactly what we need. Sarah began entering commands, her fingers flying across the interface. They want to understand human adaptation. Let's give them a crash course. Inside the lab, every piece of equipment suddenly activated. Centrifuges whirred, genetic sequencers blazed to life, and holographic displays filled the air with centuries of human medical data. The Krithak leader's chittering turned sharp, alarmed. They're attempting to shut down the systems, Araya reported. Too late, Sarah smiled. Execute second phase. The lab's environmental seals engaged with a thunderous hiss. The Krithak spun, weapons raised, as human medical data poured through their suits' sensors. But this time, Sarah wasn't trying to overwhelm their systems. She was showing them something specific. Playing recorded data from Mars colony outbreak, Araya announced, displaying human immune response patterns. The Krithak leader staggered as their biological computers processed the information. Sarah watched through the security feeds as realization hit them. The Mars colony hadn't just survived their weapon, it had learned from it. Human immune systems hadn't simply adapted, they'd evolved. What they never understood about humans, Sarah explained to Araya, is that we don't just fight diseases. We learn from them. Every plague, every virus, every bacterial infection. They all taught our immune systems something new. We don't just survive. We get stronger. The lab's equipment continued its symphony of analysis, each machine contributing to the overwhelming evidence of humanity's unique relationship with disease. The Krithak workers backed away from their stations, their weapons lowering as the truth became undeniable. Krithak biological computers are showing signs of cognitive dissonance, Araya reported. Their entire weapons research database is being rewritten by this new understanding of human immunity. Sarah nodded grimly. They came here looking for a weakness to exploit. Instead, they're learning why attacking human biology always backfires. She accessed the lab's main controls. Time to drive the point home. The central research station activated, displaying a real-time simulation of human immune response to the Krithak's hybrid pathogen attempt. The aliens watched, transfixed, as their carefully engineered weapon was systematically dismantled by the very adaptation mechanisms they'd been trying to defeat. Commander, Araya's voice held a note of warning. The Krithak leader is attempting to access emergency communications. Let them, Sarah replied, because they're not calling for reinforcements anymore. They're warning others about what they've learned here today. She started walking toward the lab's main entrance. The Krithak had come hunting for human biological secrets, expecting to find a vulnerability. Instead, they were discovering why humanity had survived countless attempts at biological warfare. It wasn't just about immune systems or genetic adaptation. It was about learning, evolving, and turning every attack into a lesson for the future. And now, the Krithak were about to learn the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best weapon is understanding why you shouldn't use weapons at all. The doors to the main laboratory slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Sarah stepped through, her neural interface active and medical kit ready. The Krithak leader turned to face her, their elaborate environmental suits biological computers pulsing with an almost nervous energy. The other Krithak moved to raise their weapons, but their leader chittered a sharp command. They stood down. Araya. Sarah spoke clearly, her voice carrying across the lab. Initiate real-time translation. The Krithak leader's next series of clicks and whistles transformed into comprehensible speech through her neural interface. You have damaged our neural network, corrupted our biological databases, and yet you did not kill. Because that's not what this ship is for, Sarah replied, moving slowly between the towering medical equipment. The Hope's Dawn was built to save lives, not end them. Something your bioweapons research seems to have forgotten. The alien's helmet sensors flickered, processing her words. Around them, the lab's equipment continued its relentless analysis of human immune responses, filling the air with scrolling data and pulsing holograms. Your species, the Krithak leader's translated voice, held a note of frustration, defies biological logic. The Mars colony should have fallen. Your immune systems should have been overwhelmed. Instead, we adapted. Sarah finished. But that's not what really scares you, is it? What terrifies you is that we didn't just survive. We rendered your weapons useless. Every Krithak bioweapon used against humans has ultimately failed. Not because we're stronger or more resilient, but because we learn. The leader's biological computers flashed rapidly, their suits' systems struggling to process this confrontation. The other Krithak shifted uneasily, their own compromised neural network making them increasingly uncertain. Your research here, the leader gestured at the surrounding lab. We believed it would reveal your weaknesses, show us how to finally defeat human biological defenses. But these data patterns... Sarah accessed the central console, bringing up centuries of human medical history. Let me show you something your biological computers might have missed. The lab's holographic displays shifted, showing the progression of human medicine through the ages. Plagues, pandemics, bacterial infections, viral outbreaks, and humanity's responses to each. Every time disease has tried to wipe us out, we've done more than just survive. We've studied it, understood it, turned it into vaccines, treatments, cures. Your bioweapons program sees this as a weakness, our need to heal rather than harm. But that's exactly why you'll never succeed in destroying us. The Krithak leader stepped closer, their helmet sensors focused intently on the displays. You preserve the diseases that try to kill you. Study them. We learn from everything that tries to harm us. Sarah confirmed. It's not just our immune systems that adapt. It's our entire approach to survival. Every Krithak bioweapon has ultimately become part of our medical knowledge, making us stronger, more prepared. The lab's lights suddenly flickered, and Aria's voice cut through the tension. Commander, power reserves critical. Detecting unauthorized access attempts in the ship's computer core. The Krithak leader's posture changed instantly, becoming more aggressive. You are clever, human. But while you lecture on adaptation, my elite team is accessing your ship's primary databases. Everything you've shown us here will help us finally develop a weapon you cannot adapt to. Sarah smiled. About that elite team, she activated her neural interface, bringing up the ship's internal security feeds. Maybe you should check on them. The displays showed the computer core, where 3 Krithak lay unconscious, their suits' systems completely shut down. Around them, the air sparkled with a fine mist, the same compound Sarah had used earlier, but modified based on what she'd learned about their biology. Impossible, the leader hissed. Our suits are sealed against all biological agents. They were, Sarah agreed, until you tried to interface with our medical databases. Your biological computers adapted to accept our data, and everything that came with it, including a few small modifications I made to the database code itself. The leader's suit began to pulse erratically as realization set in. Every piece of human medical data they'd stolen had carried Sarah's carefully engineered modifications, designed to gradually alter their suit's biological computers. They hadn't just failed to find a weakness in human biology. They'd exposed their own vulnerabilities in the process. The thing about human medical science, Sarah continued, watching as the Krithak leaders' suit systems began to fail, is that it's not just about treating disease. It's about understanding life itself. Your bioweapons program never stood a chance because you were trying to master death while we were learning to preserve life. The leaders staggered, their biological computers shutting down one by one. The other Krithak dropped their weapons, their own compromised systems finally failing. None of them were dying. Sarah had made sure of that. But their entire weapons research database was being systematically erased, replaced with something far more valuable: understanding. Eria, Sarah called out. Initiate final protocol. Hippocrates' oath. The lab's systems hummed to life one last time, transmitting a simple but comprehensive package to the Krithak suit's remaining functional systems, complete data on treating the effects of their own bioweapons, freely given. Consider this a lesson, Sarah told the faltering Krithak leader. Humanity doesn't win by having the deadliest weapons. We win by learning to heal from them. Maybe it's time your species learned to do the same. 3 weeks after the Krithak incident, Sarah stood before the Galactic Medical Council, her dress uniform pristine, as she delivered her report. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of spacefaring species, all drawn by news of what had transpired aboard the Hope's Dawn. The Krithak strike force has been returned to their territory, she explained, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Their biological computers have been purged of weapons research data, but retain all medical knowledge shared during the encounter. A Vexian counselor raised their crystalline appendage. You had their entire weapons research division at your mercy. Their biological computer network was compromised. You could have destroyed centuries of their military advantage. Why didn't you? Sarah's response was measured, careful, because destruction wasn't the point. The Krithak attacked us because they feared what they didn't understand about human biology. The solution wasn't to prove their fears right. She gestured, and holographic displays activated throughout the chamber, showing medical data from the Hope's Dawn incident. What the Krithak discovered aboard our ship wasn't a weakness to exploit, but rather a fundamental truth about humanity. Our greatest strength isn't our immune system's ability to fight disease, but our determination to learn from it. The displays shifted, showing the medical database she had shared with the Krithak. Every hostile biological agent humanity has encountered has ultimately contributed to our understanding of life itself. We don't just survive diseases. We study them, learn from them, and use that knowledge to heal others. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the implications became clear. The Krithak, notorious for their biological weapons, had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by the very thing they had tried to destroy: humanity's medical knowledge. 3 days ago, Sarah continued, we received a transmission from the Krithak Biological Research Division. They're requesting permission to establish a joint medical research initiative with human scientists, not to study weapons, but to explore cooperative healing techniques. The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. A Krithak requesting peaceful scientific cooperation was unprecedented. The council's chairperson, a towering Meridian, raised their hands for silence. Commander Chen, they addressed Sarah, you understand the implications of this. The Krithak have been isolated for centuries, their biological weapons program making them feared throughout known space. If what you're saying is true, it's already begun, Sarah confirmed, bringing up new data. The Krithak have started sharing their biological research with our medical teams. Not weapon designs, but their incredible understanding of cellular mechanisms, genetic manipulation, and biological computing. They're turning centuries of weapons research into medical breakthroughs. She smiled, remembering the Krithak leader's final words before departing the Hope's Dawn. Your species taught us that true power lies not in the ability to inflict harm, but in the choice to heal instead. The Krithak came looking for a way to defeat humanity. Sarah addressed the council. Instead, they found something far more valuable: a new way of thinking about survival itself. They learned that adaptation doesn't have to mean developing better weapons. Sometimes it means learning to put down your weapons entirely. The displays showed new images. Krithak scientists working alongside human medical teams, their biological computers now processing cure algorithms instead of weapon patterns. Their neural networks, once used for coordinating attacks, were being repurposed to share medical knowledge across galaxies. This is humanity's true gift to the galaxy, Sarah concluded. Not our immune systems, not our adaptability, but our fundamental understanding that survival depends on more than just defending against threats. It depends on learning, growing, and ultimately choosing to heal rather than harm. The council chamber fell silent as her words sank in. The Krithak incident hadn't just prevented a potential biological warfare disaster. It had cracked open centuries of isolation and fear, replacing them with possibility and hope. The Hope's Dawn was named for a reason, Sarah said softly. Because even in the darkest moments, when faced with those who would do us harm, humanity's first instinct isn't to destroy our enemies. It's to understand them, learn from them, and maybe, just maybe, help them learn something about themselves in return. As she concluded her report, Sarah thought about the medical research continuing aboard the Hope's Dawn. The ship's laboratories were now hosting both human and Krithak scientists, working together to unlock new medical possibilities. They had come seeking humanity's biological secrets, but had found something far more powerful: the understanding that true strength lies not in the ability to inflict damage, but in the choice to heal instead. The Krithak had indeed picked the wrong human to mess with, not because she had defeated them, but because she had shown them a better way forward. And in doing so, she had turned an act of aggression into something unprecedented. A chance for two species to learn from each other, adapt together, and grow stronger not through conflict, but through cooperation. The age-old human practice of learning from their enemies had achieved what centuries of warfare could not. It had turned fear into understanding, and enemies into allies. And somewhere out in the vast expanse of space, the Hope's Dawn continued its mission, no longer just a human medical research vessel, but a symbol of what could happen when the drive to heal proved stronger than the urge to harm.